Hey everyone, it's Kakyoin, your friendly neighborhood challenge runner. A while back, I took on the challenge of beating the Dark Souls trilogy starting from a fresh character at NG+7. With so many people who like to watch my videos while doing other activities like gaming, cooking, cleaning, or even to sleep to, I figured I would compile my 3 runs into one video so you don't have to go looking for each run individually. So with that said, get your second monitors ready, the oven started, or a nice warm blanket to see can you break the Dark Souls trilogy starting fresh at NG+7. Before getting the run started, let's go to today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Most of us spend hours online every day, whether it's browsing, shopping, gaming, working, or just watching videos. And with so much of our lives happening online, it's more important than ever to take your digital security seriously. That's where Surfshark comes in. Surfshark's VPN helps encrypt your internet connection and adds an extra layer of privacy while you're online. It's incredibly easy to use, just open the app, press connect, and you're protected in seconds. Whether you're at home or using public Wi-Fi, Surfshark helps keep your data more secure. One of my favorite things about Surfshark is that a single subscription can cover unlimited devices, so you can protect your phone, laptop, desktop, tablet, and more without worrying about device limits. Surfshark also offers powerful privacy and security features designed to help keep your online activity protected. Whether you're browsing on public networks, traveling, or simply using the internet day to day, Surfshark helps add another layer of security between you and potential online threats. Another great feature is the ability to connect through servers in locations around the world. This can help you access your favorite streaming services while traveling so you can continue watching content on platforms like Netflix, HBO, Max, and others wherever it's available. It's a simple way to enjoy a more consistent streaming experience when you're away from home. And it's not just a VPN. Surfshark also includes Surfshark Antivirus, which helps protect your devices from malware, viruses, and other online threats. Instead of juggling multiple security tools, you can manage your online protection from one place. It runs quietly in the background and helps keep your system safe while you focus on what you actually are trying to do. If you like to travel, like I do, Surfshark also offers access to servers around the world, giving you a secure connection wherever you go. So if you're looking for an easy way to improve your online privacy and security, check out Surfshark using my link in the description and pinned comment, and go to surfshark.com/Kakyoin or use code Kakyoin at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the rules for this run. Rule number 1, I must play the games on NG+7. Bet y'all didn't see that one coming. Rule number 2, I cannot use summons to help in boss fights. And lastly, number 3, I must beat all bosses in all 3 games. With the rules out of the way, let's get this run started. Starting off with the class, I go with the Thief for the Bandit Knife. The reason for the Bandit Knife is that it has bleed buildup, which means I can bleed 2 specific bosses for 10 to 15% of their HP per proc. I then name my character Ryan Reynolds because the Far East Traveler's face weirdly looks like him. With my character made, I start off locked in a cell, but my game is still in NG, so to fix that, I open up Cheat Engine and use a cheat table to set my journey, aka new game level, to 9, which equates to NG+8, but the scaling stops at 7. For what changes in the NG scaling, it's just the enemy's HP, damage, defense, and the amount of souls you earn. Besides that, enemy placement, AI, and items all stay the same. The image on screen should explain things in more detail if you need that. And to show that the NG plus scaling is working, I could not kill this basic hollow in 1 backstab. On top of that, for more proof, upon killing him, I got 125 souls, when in NG I would only get 20. With that explanation done with, I get my Estus from good old Oscar and plunge on down to the Asylum Demon. Here is where I use the Bandit Knife to proc bleed. The percent-based damage is what makes this fight comfortably doable. I choose to only go one-handed for faster strikes to get bleed build up faster. I ended up only needing 9 procs to kill the Asylum Demon, which only took me 1 minute and 13 seconds to do. That's faster than most of my other crazy challenge runs, and the amount of souls I get for this is 12,500. Well, that's a bit disappointing, but it's the Asylum Demon after all. With that first easy obstacle over with, it's time to get to one of the tougher parts. After arriving at Firelink Shrine, I dump all my points into Intelligence, which I'll explain why in a bit. I then make sure to get some homeward bones from the back area in the shrine, and then head to Undead Burg to get one-shotted by a basic hollow. Lovely. I go back to the Burg again to buy the Residence Key from the merchants and then do some hardcore parkour down to the lower Burg. This is where the fun begins. I need to run past the dogs and get to the fire so that they can kill themselves by running into it, but instead the dogs fly over the fire and kill me. I wish I could say attempt 2 was better, but it was not. The trick I found to make this work is that if I was about to die to the dogs was to quit out and load back in to reset the dogs. Once they were reset, I would bait them out to walk into the fire instead of jumping at me, and it finally worked on my 5th attempt. With the dogs out of the picture, I can rescue Griggs and get the Sorcerer's Catalyst. The reason for getting this, Griggs, and leveling intelligence is that the Catalyst damage is solely based on the intelligence stat, putting my AR at 158, currently allowing me to do more damage than some plus 10 weapons. So with that said, I take the shortcut to Darkroot Basin to make it to Undead Parish to open the elevator to Firelink Shrine. I then grab the Asylum West key and fly back to the Asylum. Here, to get past the torch guys, I just chill off to the right hand side to lure them away and then run past them. To take out the 2 hollows inside, I use Soul Arrow, allowing me to fight the Stray Demon with no complications. Here will be the second time I use Bleed to kill a boss. The Stray Demon is really easy to kill, you just need to stay close to him to bait out Butt Slam attacks, which you can avoid by just walking 3 steps away, and if he does his AoE attack, just run away or even walk away. The range on it is shorter than you think. I then just need to proc Bleed 11 times to kill the fat bastard, which only took me 3 minutes and 25 seconds to do, earning me 50,000 souls. After the fights, I needed the Peculiar Doll, which I got by luring the knight to the far left and then running around his right side to get the doll. I then level my intelligence to 37, putting my AR at 207. Before leaving, I make sure to grab the Iron Rusted Ring to make my life easier in Blighttown. Back at Firelink Shrine, I use some souls to get Heavy Soul Arrow, which I use to help me take the back way to get to the red Drake farming spot. On NG+7, the Drake will give you 3,450 souls, making it pretty easy to get over 40,000, allowing me to buy the Bellowing Dragoncrest ring, which will boost my sorcery damage. And while I was at it, I bought the Great Soul Arrow, the Great Heavy Soul Arrow, and Magic Weapon. I then used the leftover souls to get my attunement to 12 for a second spell slot. With that done, I use a speedrunner strat to go over the rooftop to get to the female merchant, so that I can buy alluring skulls from her. I then use those skulls to distract the army of hollows so that I can make it to Lotrick and free him, to then kick him off a ledge so that he doesn't kill the Firekeeper, removing my access to the bonfire. Once done committing murder, I use the Master Key at the bottom of the shrine to go to the Valley of the Drakes, where I can get the red Tearstone ring, which will increase my damage by 50% once my HP is below 20%. I then use the shrine's rooftop and gravity to reduce my HP below 20%, proccing RTSR. On the way to the gargoyles, I use 2 more alluring skulls to distract the hollow army, allowing me easy access to the boss room, where it's time to fight the gargoyles. Here I just use Great Heavy Soul Arrow for a big damage, but also for the fact it stuns the first gargoyle, giving me time to cast another one right after it. When the second gargoyle shows up, I run away to play it safe and then use another Heavy Soul Arrow to take out the first one. After that, it just took a few shots from Heavy Great Soul Arrow to finish off the second one, earning me 62,500 souls, which I used to get my intelligence to 46, putting my AR at 220. At this moment, I decided to kill the merchant for the Uchikatana because I thought I was going to need it, but I really didn't. But I will need the winged spear for an upcoming boss fight. I do get the katana to +5 to help with his damage, and then head to Blighttown, where I happily get poison, allowing it to drain my HP below 20% so that I can take on Quelaag. For Quelaag, I run to the left side and jump up this ledge and roll 2 times to get myself situated to spam Great Soul Arrow at Quelaag's human half to stun her in place. Now, I could have done my normal hang out in the armpit trick, or just use the high ground to do this exact same thing. But I wanted to do something different this time around, and I just wanted to show this off. My reward for this scummy technique is 75,000 souls. Before using them though, I talk to the White Lady to join her covenant and get the Great Chaos Fireball, which I will need for later. I then kill Ceaseless the same way as usual, and use all his souls I gathered to get my intelligence to 51, putting my AR at 228. Might not be much, but every point counts in this run. Once done leveling, I go to Sin's Fortress to free Old Man Logan, so that I can buy Homing Soul Mass and Soul Spear, but I only have enough souls for Homing Soul Mass. As y'all could guess, I used the Drake farm to get the 40,000 souls to be able to buy Soul Spear, which means I am ready for the Taurus Demon. For the 2 skeletons up top, I use Homing Soul Mass to take them out, and then use Gravity once again to proc RTSR, allowing me to bully the +7 Taurus Demon to smithereens. Sadly, the amount of souls he gives me is only enough for 1 level. After that easy fight, I get the Crest Shield to help with stamina recovery while being taken advantage of by a Black Knight. I also at this moment had the great idea to take on the Hydra, which I thought could be bled, but it cannot. So on round 2, I use a Soul Spear to take out a head or two, and then use Great Soul Arrow, which sadly wasn't enough to kill the last Hydra head. I did try to kill it with a katana, but that wasn't going to work. So I ran back and got the longbow nearby and bought some arrows from Andre, so I could go back and repeatedly shoot the last head until it finally fell off. Probably should have waited until after getting the crystallization staff, but hey, it is what it is. I then spun in a circle, slapping a golden golem until it died, freeing Dusk, and with Dusk saved, I could get her headpiece that will increase my sorcery damage. After that, I get my winged spear to +5 so that I can use the grass crest shield to block dogs' attacks while poking them with a magic weapon winged spear, making the Capra Demon fights a breeze, or not? It's fine, I needed to set up RTSR anyways. After setting up RTSR, I was finally able to make it past the dogs to be able to block and poke them to death, and with the dogs out of the picture, I just needed to use Heavy Soul Arrow to take out the Capra Demon. Why not Soul Spear or Homing Soul Mass, you say? Well, in my defense, I don't make the best decisions in life. It's why I do challenge runs for a living. With now having the Death's Key, I say Laurentius, get the Large Ember for much later, and farm rats for humanity. After farming, I get the Pyromancy Flame from Laurentius. Needing souls to upgrade it, I farm the Hunters at Darkroot Gardens, and while here, I got the Wood Grain Ring to help out with the Beta Chaos fight. Once done at the gardens, I get my flame to +15, then head to Blighttown to talk to Quailana to ascend my Pyromancy Flame, and finally use the humanity from the rats to get my Chaos Covenant rank to +3, earning me Chaos Storm, which costs 2 slots to use, so I get my attunement to 14 for a 3rd spell slot. I then break some giant balls and use the hollow guard below to take an arrow to the back to trigger RTSR, so I could deal big damage to the Iron Golem. I focus on using Soul Spears on the legs, and once out of spears, I use Chaos Storm to topple the giant. Sadly, it wasn't enough to kill, so I had to finish him off with a katana, so I guess it paid off after all having it. The Iron Golem in the end ended up giving me 150,000 souls. I then use those souls to get my intelligence to 60 to get ready for the 10 crystallization catalysts and put some points into Faith. Once done leveling, I hardcore parkour through Anor Londo and parkour around the blacksmith to trigger RTSR. It would have been smarter to use the Dung Pie strategy to inflict Toxic on myself, but I won't think of that strat until later. With that said, it's time for O and S, where I made the fatal mistake in round 1 to use Soul Spear at the start and not Homing Soul Mass, which ended up leading me to my death. In round 2, I got smart and used Homing Soul Mass to annihilate Ornstein's health bar, but made the fatal mistake of killing him where Super Smo spawns. Because of that, Smo landed on top of me, staggering me, and then sitting on me again to kill me. Thank you, Dark Souls! Took 2 tries, but I finally made it back to Super Smo, where I used a Broken Pillar, Homing Soul Mass, Soul Spear, and Great Soul Arrow to make quick work of Super Smo, netting me 187,500 souls, the largest amount of souls you can receive within the game. I then used those souls to get my attunement to 16 for a 4th spell slot, and then the rest of the points went into Faith. While being in Anor Londo, I do some jump quitting to access Gwendolyn. I just use Homing Soul Mass for the tracking and Great Chaos Fireball for the lava damage it does after hitting an enemy, making this an easy first try. With Gwendolyn defeated, I make sure to get Sunlight Blade for the 4 Kings fight. After getting Sunlight Blade, I go to the Painted World to take on Priscilla, but first I use the archers to deal tick damage to me while holding up the shield to get me into RTSR state. With now being in RTSR, I can fight Priscilla. After hitting Priscilla with the Soul Spear, I find her footsteps to use Chaos Storm to make her visible again, and then use Soul Spear to kill her. Even in NG+7, she's still an easy fight. With Priscilla taken care of, I place the Lord Soul to access the second half areas, where I start with the Demon Ruins to take on the Fire Sage, but I first use the little demons to trigger RTSR with blocking their Fire Breath attacks. So you could already guess how quick the Fire Sage fight went with Homing Soul Mass and Soul Spear. Upon beating the Fire Sage, I get access to its bonfire, which means I can now open the secret passage to farm Sunlight Maggots for Sunlight Metals, which I will need 10 of to get Great Lightning Spear. Once done collecting Sunlight Metals, I pick a fight with the Centipede Demon, where I learned the valuable lesson in lingering hitboxes. Round 2 was much better with me just free aiming this time to get hits in quicker, making this fight go by super quick. Then, of course, after this fight is the Bed of Chaos, where you just break 3 things and then win. But this is where the wood grain ring helped me out, because on the way to the second breaking point, I could use the extra iframes to dodge the Bed of Chaos arm, allowing me to get the second break with no issues. So, you know, the usual Bed of Chaos experience. Also, all Lord Souls from this point will just be giving me 150,000 souls, which I will use to increase my faith scaling. With beating the Bed of Chaos, I can get Fire Tempest, which is only a single spell slot, so it makes it better to use over Chaos Storm since it allows me to use more spells with it. I then join the Sunlight Covenant and offer up the medals to get Great Lightning Spear, grab the Claymore in the area for later, and kill Solaire for his talisman. I then spend an absurd amount of time trying to kill the Blue Crystal Dude to get the pendant. I then free Logan from his imprisonment so that I can buy all his spells off of him so that I could kill him to get the 10 Crystallization Catalysts without doing his questline. At 60 init, my AR will be 297, plus the Catalyst will boost sorcery damage as well at the cost of halving my spells. With my intelligence finally kicking in, I buy dung pies and blooming purple moss clumps from the female merchant so that I can toxic myself to the point of being an RTSR and then use those clumps to remove toxic. I'll be using this method from now on to trigger RTSR. First up in the DLC is the Sanctuary Guardian, where I use Homing Soul Mass and Soul Spear to pelt the giant cats after it does its slam attacks, and once out of Soul Spears, I use Great Chaos Fireball to finish the job. I then use those souls to get my Ascended Flame to +3 and go right back to the DLC to take on Artorias, whom decided to remind me that this is an NG+7 run, so I shouldn't be taking it so lightly as I have been. Too bad he only killed me once, so I still took this run very lightly. Well, until the 4 Kings that is, but we're not there yet. The trick for Artorias is to bait out his jump attacks. When he does the jump, run under him and start to cast a spell while turning around to lock onto him. Once out of Soul Spears to cast, switch to Great Chaos Fireball, but make sure to put away the Crystallization Catalyst or it will half your fire spell cast without boosting its damage. Just throw all 4 fireballs and he will go down. Why am I not using the crystal version of Soul Spear and Homing Soul Mass? Y'all already know the answer to that, I don't need to explain myself again. I then head back to Quailano to use the 125 souls that I got to get my Ascended Flame to +5, and then use the rest of them to get my faith to 35. Meaning, it's time to take on Manus, Father of the Abyss. For Manus, I started with Crystal Soul Mass, running away to bait out slam or jump attacks to get all 5 shots off. Once all 5 casts were done, I switched to Soul Spear, which I just repeated the same strat as Soul Mass to get hits in. After those 2 shots, I do 2 more shots with the Crystal Soul Spear, which leaves Manus with 1/4 of his HP left. I then wait for him to do his room-wide attack so that I can run next to him to get Fire Tempest off for the kill, but for a second I thought he was going to survive it, which did give me a mini heart attack. With Manus defeated, I level up to 92, start throwing lightning bolts at a giant butterfly until I snap it out of the sky. I then tried to burn a dragon to death, but instead had to pelt it with Homing Soul Masses and Soul Spears to get the job done. Then there was Calamite, where I just had to wait for Fire Breath attacks to get Soul Spears off, and once out of Soul Spears, I just started using Homing Soul Mass, and after Soul Mass, I used Fire Tempest to almost burn a dragon to death. Sadly, I finished him off with Soul Mass, so no dragon burn death today. I then bully Pinwell with an onslaught of magic bullets, no shocker there. Then for Nito, I use the fall damage to trigger RTSR. To keep the skeletons from coming after me, I use the spell Hidden Body that I got from Dusk, but I can't walk or it will alert the skeletons. So to dodge Nito's spike attack, you can just 2-hand the staff and hold block, which will open your legs, allowing you to get thrusted but take no damage. Once Nito got close, I just spammed him with magic bullets and then finished him off with Fire Tempest before his skeleton army could get to me. With only 2 lords left, that just leaves Seath the Scaleless. For Seath, I let him come super close to me, and as he gets ready to attack, I run away to let him break his own crystal. With his crystal broken, I then go for Fire Tempest near his belly to do as much damage as possible. Once burning his stomach, I just run away and start casting Great Lightning Spear at him, and after 5 casts, he went down, allowing me to enact justice for the deaths of his fallen brethren in the Dragon War that he backstabbed for his own greed. After killing Seath, I get the Very Large Ember so that I could get the Claymore to +15 for the 4 Kings fight, but first, I need to take care of a dog. Which wasn't too hard to do with Soul Spear and Homing Soul Mass, but I will point out how insane it is that I could miss with a Soul Spear with my Catalyst literally inside the dog. Like, what the fuck, FromSoft, what is this coding? Luckily, it didn't take too many hits to kill the poor girl. With having the Covenant of Artorias and getting my faith to 53, it was time to take on the hardest boss in this entire run, the Four Kings. The reason the Four Kings are so rough is for the fact it's a DPS check, but also for the fact the boss can launch a heat-seeking missile at you that takes over 30 seconds before it will go away, and on top of all of this, I have to use RTSR for the damage boost, which means I cannot get hit. So, playing the game of RNG, it meant I was going to die a good bit of times. I even had one really good run on my 12th attempt where I thought I had them, but they casted the homing missile, and with trying to watch that and the Four Kings, I ended up getting hit in the process. Luckily on attempt 17, I was finally able to pull it off. The strategy was to use Crystal Homing Soul Mass at the start to get damage off once close to the Kings. Then from here, cast Crystal Soul Spear after dodging his attacks, which only took 2 hits to kill the first King, and I make sure to get a hit off with the Claymore for some chip damage. I then put up my magic missiles back up and repeat the process with Soul Spear, but 2 Soul Spears don't kill the second King, so I had to use the Claymore to finish the job. For the third King, I just used the remaining Crystal Homing Soul Masses to kill the King. I then buffed my Claymore with Sunlight Blade to take on the final King. And this motherfucker decided to cast his damn magic missile at me, so I had to bum rush him as soon as possible to get 2 hits off for the win. Thank God, that was one hell of a fight. Now, some of you might be asking why no Great Lightning Spear. Well, that's because the casting time would have been too slow and I would have most likely have been hit in the process of casting it. It probably would have been better to use the normal Lightning Spear, but I just wanted to use the Claymore with Sunlight Blade because I figured the damage would be higher. With the RNG gods finally looking in my favor, I level up for the last time to 109 and open the doors to the final boss, that is Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. Damn it, Gwyn. So I had the bright idea of not parry looping Gwyn to death to make this a bit more interesting, and yeah, I'm regretting that now. I ended up dying 13 times, but this is how I got him. So I go into the fight and cast Crystal Homing Soul Mass. I then parry Gwyn, which the magic missiles will hit and deal big damage, while I follow up with a Visceral with my Bare Fist. After the Bare Fist, I switch to the Pyromancy Flame to get Fire Tempest off, but I make sure to stay far back enough to trigger Gwyn to swing instead of a grab, so that his attack would miss. After this, I just run back and wait for another parry moment to knock him down to finish him off with the Crystal Soul Spear. Completely unnecessary and could have been done a lot easier, but hey, I made it work. With that, it brings us to the end of the run, showing that not only can you beat Dark Souls starting at NG+7, but it's not near as hard as beating Liza P starting at NG+7. With that said, let's move on to Dark Souls 2. So first things first, I need to open up Cheat Engine and go to my Journey level and change it from Journey 1 to Journey 8 to put me in NG+7, which will right away put the Falconeer enemies at the very start of the game. Come to find out, one of them is an archer, which shows y'all right away this is going to be much different than the DS1 NG+7 run. In Dark Souls 2 NG+ scaling, they don't just increase the amount of HP, defense, damage, and amount of souls you get. The game adds new enemy placements while also adding red phantom enemies all over the place, and even some boss fights have been changed up for some new experiences. Items in certain chests change, higher level items can be acquired, and enemies' item drop rates have been increased. A massive improvement from Dark Souls 1 NG+ gameplay loop. Only thing that kind of sucks about doing a fresh NG+7 run though is that the game thinks I already beat the game, so it does not let me name my character, and it puts me as the deprived class, which is not a normal option, which puts all my stats at 1. I had no clue this was going to happen, but fuck it, I'll make it work. First on the agenda is to stop in Majula and get the blue seal for a bit more HP, then run to Hyde's Tower where I can still use the almighty gravity attack to make an NG+7 Dragon Rider die in a matter of seconds, netting me a whopping 48,000 souls. Which, interestingly enough, when leveling up, I stay at level 1 even though I put 19 points into ADP, 9 into Dex, 4 into Strength, and 4 into Intelligence. I save 5,000 worth of souls and head to the Forest of Fallen Giants, where I have a blast trying to get around an army of hollows. Luckily, it only took 4 attempts until I finally pulled it off. No worries, the 2 red phantoms lurking in the forest made sure to take care of me real quick. Once getting my souls back, I use some of them to buy the blacksmith key so that I can unlock the blacksmith to buy the rapier and some Titanite shards. Realizing I'm 2 dex points away from using the rapier, I pick a fight with female Patches, showing her that I'm a true feminist and that I believe in equality. After using the Fist of Equality to punch female Patches over the ledge, I get 10,000 souls, the Rotunda Lockstone, and the Idol's Charm. I then used those souls to get my dex to 12 and my intelligence to 17. Now needing a catalyst, I lured the red phantom that is guarding the gate away from it, so that when I run through it, Pates will lock me in without the phantom. After that, I get some aromatic ooze and open a secret door to a sorcerer's catalyst. With that done, I kill a douchebag for his clothes that will increase the amount of souls I earn. Speaking of souls, I lure a red phantom that is hanging outside of the Dragon Rider boss room up top so that I can knock him off for over 6,000 souls. I then use those souls to get my attunement to 10 for a spell slot. Before leaving Majula, I got my rapier to +3, go back to the Forest of Fallen Giants to get the Great Soul Arrow, and took on the Last Giant. Sadly, the Last Giant is not a boss that has anything new to it in NG+7. Unfortunately, only 3 out of the 41 bosses have something new to add to the fight itself in NG+. But some do give you new rewards for beating them. For the Last Giants, I just used Aromatic Ooze for extra damage with the rapier, Great Soul Arrow for some ranged shots, and hung out behind the giant's legs like normally to stay safe the entire time. Even on NG+7, still a very easy fight, and it netted me 49,722 souls, allowing me to buy the cat's ring very easily while getting my intelligence and faith to level 20, so that I could use the Rotunda Lockstone to unlock Huntsman's Copse, where I can talk to Falcon, who will give me the Sun's Staff and the Hexer's Hood. While here, I also buy Dark Weapon, meaning it's time for the Pursuer, whom I will not use Dark Weapon on, but the almighty Ballista to take her out. Instead of 2 shots to kill her like an NG, it takes 5 shots. Good to see the Ballista strat still works no matter what cycle you are on. With the Pursuer defeated, I get 84,528 souls, and the Ring of Blades, which will increase my physical damage. After the fights, I get access to the Lost Bastille, where I can ransack Macduff's shop for all sorts of Titanite shards and get my rapier to +6. I then use the leftover souls to get my faith and intelligence to 30 to increase Dark Weapon's damage buff and put the last 2 points into dex. I save 9,000 souls so that I can buy Resonant Weapon, which will consume 2,000 souls upon using it, which will buff Dark Elemental damage by 30% and give your weapon +50 dark attack for 60 seconds. I then make sure to talk to Pate to start his questline for a future item I will need. I then attempt to use the cat ring with 1 point into vigor to see if I can survive the well fall, and I cannot. So I switch course where I go pick up the old knight halberd, head to No Man's Wharf to talk to an old man who will sell me a magic weapon, and while here I get a fragrant branch of yore, which I use to free Rosa so that I can access the Shaded Woods where I can get the red Tearstone ring and the Calanthropy ring +1. I then attempt to kill Scorpion Dude, but a beautiful hitbox stops me from doing so. Seriously, what the hell is that hitbox? I wasn't even close to touching his pincher. Luckily, round 2 was better and I got the second dragon ring. I then get my vigor to 3 and attunement to 13 for his second spell slot. With having the blue seal, the dragon second ring, and 3 vigor, I was able to survive the fall in the well. Why not just use Resonant Flash to give me 20% more HP instead of doing all of this? Oh, very simple. I had no clue about it. With that said, I get the Pharaoh's Lockstone in the well so that I could use it at the Grave of Saints to lower a bridge for me to get Whisper of Despair, which will decrease enemies' physical defense by 100 points for 60 seconds. I then buy a mace, get my strength to 6 to two-hand the mace, use a drop to trigger RTSR, and then apply Resonant Weapon to the mace so that I could kill a Titanite Lizard for a Dark Knight Stone, which I will use on my rapier to infuse it with dark damage. Meaning when I buff it with Dark Weapon or Resonant Weapon, it will do even more dark damage than before. Also to note, throughout this run, I will make sure to buy all the bright bugs from the merchant since I'll be needing them for very specific fights. With that done, I work my way to the Gulch where I get 2 fragrant branches of yore and use one of them to get the secret bonfire in the Black Gulch, but I didn't last long after that with the army of black leeches that now inhabit the area. For the 2 woodland children, I just used a shield to 2-hand to push them off the ledge. Gravity is your best friend in a fresh NG+7 run. Before farming the leeches, I buy the traveling merchant's hats for increased item discovery, and have to say the increased drop rates in NG+7 feel really nice. Almost every other kill I was getting a Titanite chunk, making a 30-minute farm session only last 10 minutes. After grinding, I got a 3rd spell slot, took a detour to the Forest of Fallen Giants to use a Pharaoh's Lockstone that I got dots from the merchant to get a Titanite slab, allowing me to get my rapier to plus 10, making me ready for the big bad that is the Rotten. No worries though, the Rotten is never that bad, I stand corrected. So the strategy for this fight is to use the fire in the boss room to lower my HP to trigger RTSR. After that, I would use Whisper of Despair to lower the Rotten's defense, and then use Resonant Weapon to increase my damage. With all that done, it just meant I needed to run back and forth, poking the boss until he died. Well, not this attempt, but I did get him on my 8th attempt, where I switched to Dark Weapon and Great Soul Arrow for chip damage instead of using Resonant Weapon. The Rotten ended up giving me 280,436 souls. On top of that, I got the Soul of the Rotten and the Old Dead One soul, bringing my total souls to 365,436, allowing me to increase my Intelligence and Faith to 40, Dex to 17, Strength to 12, and Endurance to 10. Once done leveling, I do some parkouring and Huntsman's Copse to get a token of fidelity for later. I free Creighton from his cell for his questline, pick up Soul Spear in the area, join the Company of Champions, head back to the Gulch to start farming leeches, because I will be needing 8 million souls to open the Shrine of Winter. Normally, it would only be 1 million, but on every new game cycle up to NG+7, it goes up a million. After some hours of grinding, I finally got the 8 million to open the doors, which I had assumed the door would consume the 8 million souls, but come to find out, it's your soul memory that needs to meet the requirement. Never done this before, so I figured everyone mentioning it meant I needed all the souls on me. With that said, I will not be using the 8 million souls for levels that just wouldn't be fun, but I will use it for upgrading my weapon so that I can get the Blacksmith Hammer, which I get to plus 9. I also use a bit of the souls to stock up on some goods, and with that, I use the Dark Sign to get rid of all those hours of grinding. Being a broke bitch again, I steal a homing soul mask from an old man. I then go to Drainlit Castle, where I let the crossbow users shoot me to get me into RTSR state. Near the entrance of the castle, there's a red phantom, so I bait him to follow me back to the cliffside so that I can knock him over the ledge. Luckily, when he is dead, he stays dead. With the red phantom out of the way, I use homing soul mask and my rapier to take out the 2 guards to get inside, where I can get the frozen flower, meaning that I can access the DLC, but I make a pit stop at the Gulch to get Greater Magic Weapon. With Greater Magic Weapon in hand, I make it to Ilium Lois, where I'll be farming Guardians, which has a 1% chance of dropping a nice rapier, which is considered the best weapon in the game, and I will be needing 3 of them. While here, I also make sure to get Dark Clutch Ring as well. Sadly, Ice Rapiers need Twinkling Titanite to be upgraded, so I won't be using it just yet. So instead, I kill a giant for a key and a soul, drop down the well again to use the said key so that I can get the Dragon Talon for the Sunken Temple DLC, also get the Witch Tree Branch and Bell Vine alongside with the Great Lightning Spear. I then head to the Sanctum City, where I can get the Almighty Flinge Ring, which will boost my physical damage based on my equipment load, making taking out large HP pool enemies much easier. I then used some good old gravity to trigger RTSR so that I could spin in circles around Ornstein trying to poke him in the bum until he goes down, earning me the Leo Ring, which will increase counter damage with thrusting weapons. Also, beating Ornstein gives me access to the blue sentinels, allowing me to now buy bolt stones, which I can use to infuse my ice rapier for lightning damage. I then start increasing my vitality to increase my equipment load. I also at this point needed to start getting some of my gear to plus 10, so I farmed stone soldiers at Drainlit Castle for Titanite slabs, allowing me to get Old Knight Halberd, Witch Tree Bellvine, and Witch Tree Branch to plus 10. I then stock up on some gold pine resin, go back to Dragon Sanctum to get the Lightning Clutch Ring and some bonfire aesthetics, which I use those aesthetics to bring back the Rotten to kill him one more time so that I could get my vitality to 13, strength to 22, and dex to 30. I then buy a new rapier, which I get to plus 10, let a skeleton smack me to the point of RTSR, then buff my dark rapier in my left hand with the resonant weapon, buff my right rapier with gold pine resin, then use bright bug for even more damage so that I can 3-shot the sorcerer skeleton lord. Right after that, I took out the bone wheels, then weakened the other 2 skeleton lords so that I could take them out at the same time, do some quick menuing to get the old knight halberd out, buff it with gold pine resin, and then use alluring skulls to distract the skeleton army for an easy hit, allow me to get the first try die, earning me the clear bluestone ring +2. I then talk to T-Swift to move her to Majula, start farming Falconeer since in NG+, they have a higher drop rate of sunlight metals, which I will need 30 of to get Sunlight Spear, and while in the area, I kill the Covetous Demon, who is the same old Covetous Demon. Never change, you ugly sperm booger. I then use some gravity at Drainlit Castle to get me to RTSR range and take on the Dragon Riders, where I lure the red rider next to the pillar so that he will break it, dropping the blue rider, where I then focus my attention on him since he has the least amount of HP and is the weakest. After taking out the blue rider, it wasn't hard to run around the red rider to finish him off. I then use a ladder to easily trigger, RTSR on my 4th attempt, which has me ready to fight the Looking Glass Knights, where I make sure to run across the room to allow me to set up Bright Bug, Whisper of Despair, and Resonance Weapon. Combining this with the Leo Ring and the Flynn Ring, I can get over 1000 damage, which is just really good. It's just DS2 bosses on NG+ have some insane HP pools. So the strategy here is to pressure non-stop while strafing to the left to get his HP super low before he summons a Phantom, which luckily worked out in my favor since I was able to get him to a 1/4 of his HP by the time he decided to do it, allowing me to finish him off without dealing with his backup. With Shrine of Amana up next, I go back to the Dragon Sanctum to get the Sanctum Crossbow, which I got to +10 while stocking up on some bolts. The reason for doing this is that the crossbow allows me to take enemies out far away, making traversing this heinous area much easier. On top of this, I can now farm Twinkling Titanite, so I can now get all my Twinkling Titanite weapons maxed out. I also want to reiterate, if you're struggling with Shrine of Amana, please use a crossbow or a bow. It makes this area a lot easier to deal with. While here, I make sure to get Sunlight Blade and Crystal Homing Soul Mass. I then use the mages to trigger RTSR for me to test out Sunlight Blade damage with the Lightning Infused Ice Rapier, and without a Bright Bug, it was getting around 990 damage, which is just kind of nuts. You can imagine if it did have the Bright Bug. So you can already now guess this was a really quick fight. With the Demon of Song dealt with, I go to the Undead Crypt, let a little hollow smack me into RTSR range for me to take on Velstadt, which I go with the go-to strategy of Sunlight Blade, Whisper of Despair, and counter damage to deal big damage. Gotta love seeing those big numbers pop up. Always makes my monkey brain very happy. Velstadt is like most bosses, you just need to strafe him in a circle and wait for him to whiff to get hits in. Once he goes into phase 2, poke him while he buffs to get him below a 1/4 of his HP for him to die in a handful of pokes afterwards. With Velstadt defeated, I can now buy Dark Knight Stones and Faint Stones from T-Swift, which means I can now have a Dark Infused Rapier and a Magic Infused Rapier. Next on the list is to trade Velstadt's soul for Sacred Oath, but first I need to take care of some Sentinels who are very weak to lightning. The thing that sucked for me is while fighting the second Sentinel, I got super unlucky and it fell off the ledge, meaning I was going to have to heal up and fight the remaining 2 Sentinels on the ground, which isn't hard. It just made the fight last longer than it would have if the second one didn't fall off. With the Sentinels taken care of, I can free Emo Dude, who I can trade in Velstadt Souls for Sacred Oath, which will increase physical damage by 50 and increase my defense by 75. I also make sure to buy Dark Fog for some later fights. I then infuse my Belfine with lightning to deal even more lightning damage. I let the Thief wound me into RTSR range for me to take on Nashka. Sadly, I only had 4 spell slots at the time, so I cannot use Sacred Oath yet. But Nashka is the same as usual, just bait out her tail attacks for easy hits on her, and when she does her dig attack, you could just stand on this pillar to avoid being hit by it. Jokes on all of y'all, I wanted her to step on me. On round 2, I made sure to roll this time after the dig and had no issues finishing her off, earning me the Southern Ritual Band +2, which will come in handy later on. At this point, I'm at level 175, working on getting my attunement up. I then head to Brightstone Cove, where I use a Lloyd Talisman to get the best staff in the game. I then infuse the Wisdom Staff with magic to deal even bigger damage. I also had the lovely surprise at Brightstone Cove of Freya jump scaring me, which is actually really cool. The devs added this in the NG+ cycle, kind of wish they did more of it. After being scared half to death, I took on the congregation and they go down just as fast as they normally do in NG. I then talked to Pate and Creighton to move them to Brightstone Cove, where I try and help Creighton, but the little bitch backstabbed me. But no worries, I forgave him after he gave me the Telsador Den key, allowing me to get the engraved gauntlets, which gives normal attacks a 5% chance to crit. And who better to test it out on than Freya herself? Unfortunately, the fight itself is the same, but she does retain the damage from the previous encounter, so that's cool. But same strat as always, just bait out the beam attack and poke away, making this fight a walk in the park, earning me the old pale Drake soul, which I can trade in for the crystal soul spear. At this point, I finally get my 5th spell slot, find out the torch rooms for Lost Center are guarded by red phantoms, so fuck that. Lost Center isn't hard without the lights anyways. Oh, well, she is hard if she has 2 red phantom pyromancy guys backing her up. So I switch directions to Mytha, where I finally get to use Sacred Oath and Sunlight Blade together, allow me to deal some really good damage to Mytha. I imagine if I could use Whisper of Despair as well, this fight would have been shorter than it already was. With having the King's Ring after the Velstadt fight, I go to Aldia's Keep to bully a dragon with my lightning stick and some throwable lightning sticks, which you can see how much stronger buff damage on weapons is in comparison to pure spell use. 254 for the strongest miracle spell in the game, and 1327 from one poke from the Ice Rapier. Poor dragon never stood a chance. I now have access to the Dragon Shrine, allowing me to acquire Crystal Magic Weapon. I then pick a fight with a fake dragon where I use Dark Fog to poison and then poke at it with my Lightning Stick, which did good damage to it, making it a shorter fight than it usually would be, netting me a whopping 480,000 souls, which I use to get my agility up for even more iframes. I then go take on the King of Giants, who I thought I was going to have to fight without RTSR, but funny enough, I could survive one fireball attack, putting me in RTSR's range. I did not plan for that, but I will take it. For the Giant King, just lock onto his left leg and strafe to your left. All he can do in this position is stomp or backswing his sword, which by just walking to the left, you can avoid these attacks for an easy win. Speaking of easy wins, you just need to stand behind Vendrick, poking him in the bum until he goes down. With all those souls, I could get my 6th spell slot, allowing me to have Sacred Oath, Sunlight Blade, and Whisper of Despair on at the same time, which means it's time for me to go to the Cave of the Dead and not use any of those spells to poison dash stalagmite cheese the shitty duo. City trio. Fuck it, we're doing it live. Because the normal way to fight these guys is straight up not fun, and it's Christmas time, so this is my Christmas gift to myself. With them out of the picture, I took on Smelter Demon next, who cannot use RTSR on since he can chip damage me with his fire, so I just had to fight him normally, but with maximum iframes and using the Deadly 3 combo spells, he went down fairly quickly. Up next is his boss, who must be related to the Centipede Demon because he's got some nasty lingering hitboxes on him. No worries, he went down on the second round with no issues, but my pride is still damaged nonetheless. With the Old Iron King defeated, I can access the Old Iron King DLC where I can get the Sorcery Clutch Ring, which I will need for Alana, alongside Sacred Oath, Crystal Magic Weapon, a Bright Bug that can be used with Sacred Oath but only after Sacred Oath has been casted, then a Whisper of Despair with some good counter damage from the Leo Ring, allowing me to get up to 1400 damage per hit. I got lucky she summoned her skeletons, which I made sure to take out right away so that they will go back into her summoning pool in hopes they will be summoned again instead of Velstadt, and my luck paid off because that is exactly what happened. Downside is that all my buffs ran out around this point, so I decided to play it safe and heal up, which fortunately I did because her skeletons did get a hit off on me, but I was able to stay calm and just focus on attacking Alana to the point of victory. I have to give it to Lady Luck on this one because RNG definitely could have made this fight 10 times worse. Oh, hello, bad RNG. Sin ended up killing me 12 times. This one right here is my favorite death. Explain this one to me, Dark Souls 2 stands. Explain how I died to nothing, because I don't think you can defend this one. Funny enough though, this fight really wasn't that bad. I just had to bait out his horizontal breath attack and that was it. It just shows how an easy fight can be rough with some bad RNG and how a hard fight can be easy with some good RNG. Well, after that fiasco, I wanted an easy win, so I went poke an undead horse to death, which you can see even without RTSR, I can still do some really good damage. I then had the lovely surprise for the Flexile Sentry fight that he gets 2 assassins for backup. Unfortunately for the Flexile Sentry, I can try again, and with now knowing where the ads spawn, I can just take them out from the start. just leaving the Flexile Sentry to defend for itself, and I just made sure to fight its club side since it's the slowest and easiest to punish to death. After that, I talked to the Dark Wizard 3 times so I can fight Dark Lurker, but first I used some Dung Pies to poison myself to get into RTSR range. For Lurker, I used Sacred Oath and Sunlight Blade at the start, and then waited for Lurker to go into the air to just use Bright Bug. After that, it was all about staying on top of him to bait out his lightsaber attacks for easy dodges and easy hits. Once he splits, I do my best to get double damage and then focus my attention on the one that is using saber attacks. Besides that, I run for dear life dodging projectiles, waiting for one of them to do a lightsaber attack for me to eventually finish them off, and as usual, Lurker gives me a heart attack thinking he's about to get an attack off even after death. I then talk to the Dark Wizard to get the Dragon Charm, which is the best lightning charm in the game, and get Great Resonant Soul. With that done, I was ready for Ava, thinking this was going to be an easy first try, but the damn cat ended up killing me 4 times. Well, I guess that's to be expected when you have to no-hit the giant cats, but on my 5th attempt, I finally got into the groove of getting behind the wild animal to shock it to death. Whoa, PETA, Hassan's house is across the street. You got the wrong guy shocking animals. After Ava, I decided to fight Blue Smelter Demon. The plan for this fight was using Dark Weapon since that is the strongest against Blue Smelter Demon, in combination with Dark Fog for poison damage, but the real trick here was managing HP since the tick damage after the second buff goes nuts. So I had to find a good balance act of healing and then attacking, but with max iframe, Smelter Demon wasn't an issue. Before moving on to Fume Knight though, I go to Drainlight Castle to get Katha's Charm, which is one of the best dark chimes in the game, which I need for the Fume fight. For the Fume Knights, I decided to play it safe and go with the range attacks since that is the easiest way to beat them. I went with the Great Resonant Soul and Resonant Soul since they will consume souls for more damage, and Fume Knight is fairly weak to dark magic. So the fight became just walking backwards with the occasional roll to get a cast off, and once running low on spells, refill them back up with a potion. Just do this for almost 10 minutes and Fume Knight will go down on your first try on NG+7. Up next is Sir Alone, who will be the last fight I use RTSR on, since the remaining fights it will just be too dangerous otherwise to do so. With Sir Alone being weak to lightning and thrusting, I went back to my lightning ice rapier. The strat is the same as usual, just circle to the right and roll and poke, which almost worked, but I ended up making one mistake each time leading to my death. On the 3rd attempt, it definitely could have been avoided if I had just rolled back since that was the safest way to dodge his jump attack, but it wouldn't be until my 4th attempt that I was able to no-hit Sir Alone. With no longer needing RTSR, I start putting points into Vigor, but I need more than 7 points, so I start farming the Giant King for his souls to get my Vigor to 20. After that, it was time for the Gargoyles, which I thought Magic Ice Rapier with Crystal Magic Weapon would be the best for this fight, but come to find out Soul Spear and Crystal Soul Spear were way better. With the spells having the Pierce ability, I could hit multiple gargoyles at one time from a safe distance, so once realizing that, I just stuck casting those 2 spells for the win. With the gargoyles taken care of, I take out the 2 red phantoms blocking the torches so that I can light up both of them. For the Lost Center, I decided to go with range to play it safe and to allow me to keep an eye out for when the Pyromancers show up. So for when they do pop out, I can bum rush them to poke them to death, which worked great for the first one, but it took me a minute chasing the second one around to poke it to death. You might be wondering, why don't I just use magic to kill them? The thing is, phantoms know when you cast magic and will roll away, so it's better to just run up to them and melee them since they don't spam roll at that point. With the Lost Center with no more backup, I was able to cast my magic away for the win. After that, I took on the Rat Dog, where I spam Great Resonant Soul to kill all the small rat dogs, and then just rotate between melee attacks and magic to take out the big rat dog, which now leaves me with the hardest fights in this run, the Ivory King. For his soldiers, I go with magic melee build since they are weak to magic. The fun strategy for this one is just hit and run and hope you don't die. For the king, I switched to a lightning dash dark build with lightning clutch ring, dark clutch ring, Flynn's ring, and a +2 clear bluestone ring. The key here was keeping one of my knights alive to distract the king so I can get hits off on him safely and hopefully get his HP past half health, and then switch into some ranged attacks for some safe hits, which sadly did not go as planned 99% of the time. I got close to killing the king this way, but he ended up catching me near the end, leading me to die 37 times to him. But I stayed hard-headed and kept doing the same strategy until it finally paid off. Why not do a different strat or just go get more health? Well, that would be a smart thing to do, and I'm no smart cookie. With the hardest fight out of the way, that just leaves Lud and Zalin, which funny enough were not that bad. They only had 15,000 HP each, and it seems like on NG+, Zalin doesn't join the fight until much later, which helped a lot to get Lud's health low to take him out. Downside here is that the cat's skin just destroys weapon durability, and I didn't have any repair powder on me. Meaning I only had one option, my trap card, the Saintinaire Spear. When the halberd is broken, it becomes an unbreakable spear, allowing me to defeat Lud and Zalin and sending them to the Shadow Realm where they belong. With that done, that just leaves leveling up for the last time to 253, then using a Bright Bug to destroy the Throne Watchers in a matter of seconds. For Nasandra, I just gave her the Vendrick treatment of being poked in the bum, and of course, Aldea is Aldea, so he wasn't much of a fight, bringing this wild ride of a run to an end. So can you beat Dark Souls 2 starting at NG+7? Of course you can, but can you break it? Not so much. With that said, let's move on to Dark Souls 3. Starting off with the class, I went with the Thief for the Bandit Knife since I'll be needing its bleed buildup to make Gundyr a piece of cake. I then named my character Jeff because my name's Jeff. Once done with making my character, I need to mod the game to NG+7, so I open up Cheat Engine like I did for the last 2 games and find the journey level and set it to 8 to put me in NG+7. I know it's working because after killing a hollow, I get 128 souls when they normally give you 20. The most surprising thing here is that I don't get one-shot by the hollows. I was expecting this to be like DS1 and 2 when it comes to crazy damage, but that seems not to be the case here. Some interesting things that change in NG+7 is that souls you pick off the ground are higher level, and you can get higher level rings that weren't accessible in NG. Sadly though, bosses and enemy placements are the exact same. Here's a chart showing the NG+ scaling for those who would like to see the numbers of it all. With that said, it's time to bleed Gundyr here to death. Very straightforward fight, just dodge to the right and smack a few times until I get a bleed off. The reason for the bleed is that bleed deals percent base damage. So even though Gundyr has 4,985 health, I can take about 15% of that off with each bleed proc, making this supposed hard start an absolute breeze. I just make sure to go single-handed here to get more hits off faster to proc bleed sooner. Then for the second phase, he becomes even easier with just standing behind him while slashing away. The only dangerous part is his jump attack, but all I had to do was walk back and roll. I just repeated this a few times, and after 9 bleeds, the big bad Gundyr goes down, earning me 19,125 souls. After that easy fight, I pick up the coveted Silver Serpent Ring for some extra soul gain. I then convince a giant crystal lizard off an edge for 16,830 more souls. On top of this, I make sure to mug a homeless man for 14,025 souls, and take his Uchi Katana, which will be my weapon of choice for the time being. I then use all those souls to get my dex to 31 for damage, strength to 11 to wield the katana in one hand, and vigor to 13 for survivability. Before leaving, I make sure to stock up on fire bombs. I use those fire bombs and a bow and arrows that I had on me to kill 2 Pus of Man to net me 2 Titanite shards. I then do the usual gathering of gold pine resin, Titanite shards, undead hunter charm, and killing the old hag. The only different thing I grabbed this time was the black fire bombs, which I will need much later on in this run. I then use all the souls I gathered to get my vigor to 16 and get my Uchi Katana to +2, having me ready for Vort. Now, is the Uchi Katana the most fitting weapon to take on Vort with? No, the best weapon to use in this case would actually be the broadsword, since straight swords are busted with their insanely fast one-headed swings. The reason for not going this route is that the broadsword scales mainly with strength, and the main weapon for this run uses dex. So, to not invest points where they're not needed early on, I went with the Uchi Katana, even though its bleed buildup won't have any effect on Vort. With that explanation out of the way, the trick for Vort's first phase is to just stay underneath him while smacking away. Nothing new here. Now, when Vort goes into phase 2, I make sure to switch to single-handed so that when Vort does his Ice Breath attack, my charged attack will be a poke, making hitting his head a lot easier, allowing for a nice visceral afterwards, which Vort was not too fond of and almost one-shot me right afterwards. That's 16 vigor and armor coming in clutch right there. With Vort in phase 2, his hitboxes become much larger and most of his attacks can get you even with being underneath him, so I just played it safe and waited for his Ice Breath attack to get a visceral off. It definitely got close a few times, but I was just able to survive to get the first try off, earning me 21,037 souls, allowing me to get my dex to 34. I then pick up some alluring skulls, talk to a hermit who will help me out in a bit, pick up some charcoal pine resin, kill the crystal lizard to get a sharp gem, nab the mortician ashes for alluring skulls and human pine resin purchases, to then get one-shotted by a small child. That NG+7 damage finally kicking in. Back to gathering though, I get the Fire Clutch Ring, free Cornyx so that I can have access to Pyromancy, pick up the Titanite shards in the area, let a blind chick touch me if you know what I mean, head to the Road of Sacrifice to grab the Grass Crest Shield for the stamina regain, and the Sage Ring for faster casting speed. Talk to a sorcerer douchebag so that I can learn sorcery, snag the noob armor set stated by some Souls experts, but it's still my favorite armor set. Then use the Almighty Gravity spell to take out Dumb and Dumber, making my way to Farron Keep to get the Gold Scroll, the Sage Scroll, and the Dust Crown. Also, while here, I got the Farron Cold to be able to use the Sharp Gem and nab the main weapon of this run, the Cell Sword Twin Blades. But I'm not done gathering yet. I get the Dream Chaser's Ashes to be able to buy Titanite shards, kill a stray demon for some souls, and kill the 2 crystal lizards for large Titanite shards. I then go back to Firelink Shrine to upgrade my Cell Sword to +4 and infuse them with a Sharp Gem to make their dex scaling an A. I then go back to the Road of Sacrifice to get the Great Swamp Pyromancy Tome, the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring +1, and the Swamp Ring. I then meet up with my Onionite friend to slay a demon, and of course, as tradition goes on this channel, we must stop and toast with our friend. Salud everyone, I hope your day is going well. Once done drinking, I get the Flynn's Ring and Chloranthy Ring. With all that done, I get my dex to 40 and start working on increasing my faith. I also visit with Cornyx to get Fire Orb and Poison Mist, making me ready for the Curse Rotted Greatwood. Which y'all are probably thinking, this is easy Kane. All you have to do is take out the basic mobs, slap some pus sacks to the point of them busting, then for phase 2, use the Fire Orb to help pop some more sacks, and then finish the tree off with a Fiery Cell Sword. You would be correct there, dear viewer, but you forgot one crucial detail. I'm the one playing, and I have the marvelous ability to die to easy bosses, and not just once, but thrice. That's 3 more times than the Nameless King, mind you. Luckily, I was able to stop myself from dying a 3rd time and finally burn this stupid tree down, netting me 49,087 souls. I then use those souls to get my faith to 20. Right after this, I make a deal with the wizard to sacrifice my youth for 5 more levels in faith, allow me to be able to use the Dark Blade spell, which I got the tome from Yuria, who I gave to the blind chick to buy the spell, and the Saint's Ring. Also, I use Yuria to buy poison throwing knives, which will come in handy for a few fights. Needing a talisman, I went back and picked up the Saint's Talisman. Funny thing is, I won't be using any of that for the next fight against the Abyss Watchers. The plan here was to go Flynn's Ring for the extra damage and hope the 3rd Watcher distracts the first one while I hit it from behind, but unfortunately the 3rd Watcher kept getting double teamed. So that meant I needed to try to solo this, and that didn't pan out too well. Round 2, I got some better RNG with the 2nd Watcher getting distracted by the enemies outside the fog wall, which I had no clue could happen, allowing me to take out the main Watcher to put me in phase 2. My plan was simple, just get a backstab off after the Watcher jumps in the air by running under his attacks, followed up by a few slashes for some extra damage. Which normally works like a charm, but with one simple mistake, I got one-shotted. Round 3 and 4 were not so good, I couldn't even get past the first phase. But finally on round 5, I made it back to phase 2, where I decided to use the gold pine resin I collected earlier to dish out some extra damage. Luckily, with my high level, I could survive some hits to stay in the game, but I still used the same safe strategy as before and just waited for jumps to get backstabs in. Took about 4 minutes of patiently waiting for attacks, but I was finally able to get the win, earning me 100,980 souls. After the fight, I knew I needed some more HP, so I got my vigor to 20 and then started working on my intelligence stat. I then make my way to the catacombs, pick up the Grave Warden Ashes to be able to buy Carthus Rouge, and take on Walnir, which took a bit longer than usual since it takes a lot more damage in NG+7 to break his bracelets, which is obvious, but either way, still an easy fight. After that, I go to Smoldering Lake, watch Worm Solaire die a painful death, and take on the Old Demon King. For this fight, I went with Dark Blade and Poison Mist. Poison Mist for the tick damage, and Dark Blade for the dark damage, since that's what the Old Demon King is most weak to. This should have been an easy first try with not locking on and just rolling and strafing to the right, but near the end I was a bit overconfident in my running abilities, leading me to get one shot. I made up for it in round 2 though, and in round 2 I did a much better job of showcasing how busted the Cell Sword's two-handed L1 attack can be. Near the end of the fight, I got very cautious with the Old Demon King after his explosion that I made sure to poison him first to lower his health and then finish him off with the Cell Swords. I have had way too many experiences with him just popping right back up and smacking me, so I wasn't taking any chances here. With the Demon King defeated, I made sure to get the chunk and large shards in the area and then visited the bird nest to trade in a black firebomb for another chunk, allowing me to get my Cell Swords to +7. I then killed Pontiff's Croc Dog for Pontiff's right eye, which will increase my damage for every consecutive hit I do, which is perfect for the Cell Swords. As you can see with the amount of damage I could do to the Crystal Sage. 1347 might not seem like much, but that's actually really good at this point in the game. I also made sure to coat my sword in poison so that I can have some tick damage going on as well. So of course, I play hide and seek with the Sage until he summons his clones, which is where I use the poison throwing knives to hit the clones to make them go away, since they only need to be hit once, leaving the poison Sage wide open for me to pound on until he died. Right after this, I make sure to get the Paladin's Ashes to be able to buy the Lloyd Shield Ring. I then grab the Lloyd Sword Ring, take out 2 Giants for their large Titanite Shards, hit up the Sorcerer Douche to buy Pestilent Mist, buy a staff from the Merchant to be able to use Pestilent Mist, and then use all the souls I have gathered to this point to get my intelligence to 30 to be able to use the spell, making me ready for the Deacons of the Deep. So the Deacons are the same as normal here, you just lure the mob to the back and take out the red glowing Deacons to deal a set damage to the health bar. Once the main Deacon is summoned, I use the mist to weaken the trash mobs and the boss, and use an alluring skull to distract the fodder to wail on the main Deacon. Except things didn't go as planned in round 1 and I ended up dying. Good thing round 2 was way better and I had no issues using the same strat to beat the boss. While at the Cathedral, I used that Hunter's Charm I got earlier to get the Deep Burrell Divine Tome, allowing me to be able to buy Deep Protection. With the Deacons defeated, I can access Ethereal the Boreal Valley, where I can get the Witch Tree Branch, which increases casting speed when held. I also take out the Giant Lady here to get Doris Gnawing, which will be very useful in this run for its insane bleed buildup. While in the valley, I made sure to get the Magic Clutch Ring as well. I might have died getting it, but it was 100% worth it. I then break into Earthel Dungeons to get the Jailer Key so that I can get the Bellowing Dragoncrest Ring for that 20% sorcery damage. I then die to a giant while killing a Crystal Lizard for its chunk. Sucks for the giant though, because I can just use Pestilent Mist on him and he will never wake up from his nap. But karma's a bitch, and I die to gravity right afterwards. I then use my last Hunter's Charm to get the Dark Clutch Ring. I then pick up the Lightning Blade as well, and grab Xanthos Ashes as well as the Dust Crown Ring. Once done robbing the prison, I go to the Profane Capital, where I killed a sorcerer for Logan's Scroll, which will allow me to buy Homing Soul Mass and Soul Spear. While I was at it, I buy more of his stock so that the douche will give me the Young Dragon Ring for 12% more sorcery damage. I then use the Pestilent Mist to kill a Mimic chest without waking it up to get the best catalyst in the game, the Court Sorcerer's Staff. Needing some more shards, I nabbed 2 large Titanite shards back at Smoldering Lake that I missed to get my staff to +4. With all that done, it's time for Yorm. For this fight, I'll be using the Magic Clutch Ring, Bellowing Ring, Young Dragon Ring, and the Crown of Dusk for a 57% increase in sorcery damage. On top of that, I have the Dust Crown Ring to reduce spell costs, making Soul Spear a lot cheaper to use. The reason for this build is for easy headshots to break Yorm. Once broken, I get 3 hits off with the Cell Swords and then a Visceral. The interesting thing about this is, apparently those hits on the head and Visceral count towards the next head break, because the next Soul Spear after the Visceral broke Yorm again. I had no clue the damage on the head after the break counts for the next one. Also, interestingly enough, once in phase 2, it actually takes more damage to break Yorm's head, because even after smacking it with the swords, it took took 3 soul spears after to get the next break. Even after hundreds of hours, I'm still learning new things about this game, but with that fun bit of information shared, I just repeated this pattern until the big boy went down, earning me 151,470 souls, which I used to get myself to level 88. I then free Grey Rat and buy the buckler shield off of him for later, while at the shrine I buy human pine resin, and y'all know what that means, it's time for Dancer. For Dancer, I do the usual of applying human pine resin for dark damage and try to stay on her backside slapping away. The reason for the pine resin and not dark blade is that I only have 1 spell slot and I wanted to use that for soul spear for phase 2. In phase 2, Dancer becomes a lot easier to beat when attacking from range. Well, that's if you don't fuck it up like I did. Round 2 was a very short fight due to me trying to be too aggressive. Round 3 though, I made it back to phase 2, and as you can see, it's pretty easy to keep distance while getting hits off. My biggest regret though was not using Doris Gnawing instead. It would have required less ring setup, so I could have had Lloyd's Shield Ring on at the time, and the bleed damage would have made the fight twice as fast. But I was able to make Soul Spear work to get the job done, earning me 229,500 souls, which I used to get my intelligence to 40 and put the rest in vigor because I could use the extra health. With Logic Castle open to me, I gather all the chunks and shards I can, kill a mimic for the Sunlight Straight Sword, pick up the red Tearstone Ring for a few fights, use the souls I gathered to get my vigor to 25, use the chunks I got to get my swords to +9, and the large shards to get my Saint's Talisman to +5. I then buy some charcoal pine resin for the next boss fights, and then use gravity to trigger RTSR, having me ready for the Dragon Slayer armor, where I use Sunlight Straight Sword's weapon art, Oath of Sunlight, which grants an 11.5% AR increase and 10% bonus to damage absorption for 45 seconds. I then use Deep Protection right after this, which is very important to do this after Oath of Sunlight, because if it's done before, Oath of Sunlight will cancel out Deep Protection. I then apply the resin and eat some green blossoms for a stamina boost, making me fully buffed up for Dragon Slayer, where I'm going in with RTSR, Flynn's Ring, the Right Eye of Pontiff, and a Fire Clutch Ring. Combine all of this with not locking onto the boss and running in circles makes for a very easy fight. The only scary part was the butterflies, but I decided to just keep pressuring, and I was able to kill Dragon Slayer armor before they could even get a chance to hit me. Son of a bitch! Oh, okay, thank God. They gave me the win. I just had a PTSD moment thanks to DS2. If you know, you know. I then used the souls I just got to start working on getting my phase 230 to be able to use Lightning Blade, but I'm a few 120,000 souls shy, so I get to farming, and after a bit of farming, I was able to get it to 30, which means it's time for Osiris, where I use a similar setup as before, but trade out RTSR for Lloyd Sword Ring and Fire Clutch Ring for Lingering Dragon Crest Ring +1 so that Lightning Blade will stay up longer. The strat for Osiris in phase 1 was just staying on his stomach, swinging away. For phase 2, I keep doing this, but on his backside where it's the safest. Some of you might be wondering why no RTSR. Very simple, I was afraid of the boss charge attack, and I'm glad I was because I did get hit by it. Only surviving thanks to being level 101 and having 25 vigor, but I recovered quickly and was able to win the fight swiftly. After the fights, I get the Path of the Dragon so that I can path on over to Archdragon's Peak, where I can get Lightning Clutch Ring and one-shot a dragon to death. While here, I get the Dragon Chaser's Ashes to be able to buy chunks and do the mating ritual of Havels to lure him away to nab a slab, which I use to get my swords to +10. Realizing I missed the Mornay's Ring and Ring of the Sun Firstborn, I go pick those up to increase my miracle damage, meaning it was time to abuse Doris Gnawing on Champion Gundyr. This man might be a threat up close, but far away, he's practically a pushover. Thanks to the massive bleed buildup from Doris Gnawing, it didn't take too long to beat Gundyr. I then continue my bullying with Doris on a Black Knight so that I could get the Hornet's Ring for counter damage. Also, I just noticed that the callback to DS1 with the Taurus' sword and tombstone. A very nice touch from FromSoft. With that said, it's time to put the ring to use for the Pontiff fights, where the buckler I bought earlier comes into play for parry purposes. After visceraling Pontiff, I make sure to run past him to bait out his jump attack, which is the easiest attack to parry. After the second visceral, I go to town with the Cell Swords to get as much damage off as possible. I back away once he goes into phase 2, and right when he stops buffing himself, I charge in for more hits and pressure non-stop to get the win. A bit risky going with RTSR here, but Lady Luck was on my side this go around. After beating Pontiff, I was able to get my faith to 40 and start working on getting my vigor to 30. I then go get the Eastern Ashes for large Titanite shards, commit a war crime against the Yorshka Stance to get her chime, which is the best chime in the game. Huh. Interesting, not only did I kill DS1's most beloved character for his chime, I also just killed DS3's most beloved character for her chime. Oh well, I then get my bloody up Yorshka chime to +9, so that my lightning blade will be juiced up and ready for Aldrich, where I make sure to have the lightning clutch ring on as well for even more damage. This fight plays out the same as normal. The only thing I did to make it easier was stand in front of Aldrich, but not too close to bait him to do physical attacks. If you stand too much on top of him, he'll run away. Besides that, it was the same old whack-a-mole fight. Pretty easy first try. With that done, the Grand Archive can now be opened where I can get my second slab, which I used on my staff when I should have used it on my chime. No clue why I did that. I then get my vigor to 30 so that I can take on the Twin Princes, where right at the start of the fight, I quit out. This is a speedrunner dash no-hit strat. By doing this when I go into the fight, the elder brother won't jump on top of me. With this, I can get all my buffs off with no issues. From here, I just roll to the right after attacks and smack away when I can. Tragically, near the end of the first phase, I got hit, but still beat the elder brother, which had me panicking, so I ran back to the entrance to get ready for the magic missiles, and come to find out, if you go back to the entrance, they can't teleport on top of you. I only thought this worked right when you enter the fight, but come to find out, you can do this at any point in the fight. I didn't stay there long, I just wanted to get healed and rebuffed. Once done with that, I made sure to stay on top of the brothers to do the same strategy as before of just rolling to the right and hitting them from behind. By doing this, I could hit both brothers at the same time. So when the elder brother went down, the younger brother would barely had any health left, allowing me to finish him off with no issues, earning me the first try. Also earning me 216,750 souls, which I make the bad call of pumping them into intelligence. Either way, it was time for the Nameless King, where I used the Lightning Cell Swords to fight the chicken as normal, and then abused Doris 9 on Nameless. For those of you who do not know, Nameless pretty much just lets ranged users do whatever they want to him, and combine this with a spell that can make him bleed, it wasn't much of a fight. Still blows my damn mind that the fucking tree killed me more times than the majority of the bosses so far. After the fight, I grabbed the slab in the area so that I could get my chime to +10. I then placed all the lord's heads so that I can access the Kelm of the First Flame, where I can take a bonfire to the Dredge Heap, meaning it's time for the Demon Prince. For phase 1, I just lure the Demon of Pain away from the Demon of Below so that I can smack him to death with no interference from Mr. Below, and with only Below left, I just made sure to hang out near his belly or backside to be safe while getting hits off. For phase 2, I made sure to bring Carthus Rouge because this boss has way too much health, and the bleed proc will speed this fight up dramatically. The Demon Prince is pretty much the same as phase 1, where you can just hide underneath him or behind him, but just need to be careful when he flies away to get ready for his beam attack and when he tries to do his body slam attack. Besides that, I just focus on getting bleed procs off until I won. Right after that, I poison cheese Half-Light because fuck that fight. With Half-Light out of the picture, it meant it was Gale time. Gale was a bit of a tough one. I did a good amount of experimenting to figure this one out, leading me to die 7 times. The plan was to use Lightning Blade once in phase 1 to fight him normally. In phase 2, I start off with the Poison Throwing Knives to get a poison proc for its tick damage. Once the poison was in effect, I switched to Doris 9 for bleed procs, which made getting to phase 3 very quick. In phase 3, I continued to use Doris 9 until I can no longer use the spell. This put Gale below a fourth of his health, so I just have to wait for him to do his double slam attack to get hits in, and I repeat this until I won. A bit complicated, but it got the job done. Right after this, I took on Sister Frida, which was a lot easier than you would think. Phase 1, I just waited for her to go invisible and backstab her, which I follow up with a few slashes afterwards. Repeat this until she's dead. For phase 2, use Poison Throwing Knives to poison Father. JK Leads would be so proud of me at the amount of throwing knives being used in this run. After Father is poisoned, I get some Lightning Blade damage off to speed up the kill. For phase 3, you repeat phase 1, but instead of waiting for her to go invisible, you can do this after any of her jump attacks for an easy backstab. I also had some Gold Pine bundles on me for some extra damage as well, leading to a very easy first try. After this was the not so easy fight with Gravetender, where I even went out of my way to get the Ring Spear and adjust my stats, thinking it would help me out. It tragically did not. I got close to winning 3 times to just end up getting one shot by the damn giant wolf, leading to a total death count of 27. God, I really hate this fight. The strategy came to be use charcoal resin on the small wolves at the start to take them out quickly. I then poisoned Grave Tender for tick damage. After getting poison off, I switched to the spear to get a few hits in so that when the poison stops, it's right before he would summon the giant wolf. I then get Grave Tender stuck to apply the poison to rebuff myself and switch back to the Cell Swords, where I try to DPS Grave Tender down as fast as possible. Some tries I was able to kill him before the wolf showed up, and other times the poison would kill him. But with Grave Tender out of the picture meant it was just the giant wolf, whom I made sure to poison as well for the tick damage and use Flaming Cell Swords with the Fire Clutch Rain to finish the job. Thank fucking God, because I don't want to see this damn fight again for a while. With that done, that just leaves 2 bosses left, and I decided to go for the Soul of Cinder, who as usual, gives me a hard time. Not as hard as Grave Tender with only 13 deaths this time, but still a pain nonetheless. The worst part is that on my original winning attempt, I forgot to hit the record button, so I ended up having to redo the fight again by respawning the boss. So my new death count is 15 with 2 wins, which sucks because the first win was super clean, whereas this win, well, it was a bit of a mess, but a lot more intense. What was also missing from me not recording was that I adjusted my stats to take points away from intelligence and put them into vigor for 50 and dex for 58. With that said, the strategy was to use lightning blade with the single sword strikes to allow for safer dodges and switch to double swings once Cinder entered his mage state, making his first phase sometimes easy. For phase 2, same as before, use lightning blade with single strikes while dodging to the right, which worked well on the first win, but this time I ended up running out of Estus and only had 10% HP left. I honestly thought I was going to die here, but I somehow managed to pull it out of my ass. But to just give y'all a taste of that intensity, here's the last 30 seconds of the fight. I'm just as shocked as y'all as to how I pulled that off, but with that done, I lull up for the last time to get myself to 137. For me to take on Midir, who is the same old boring fight as usual, but Midir heard me talking shit and killed me 2 times for it. But I got him on the 3rd attempt with no issues. If it isn't obvious, lightning cell swords go burr. Also, Midir gives the most souls in the entire game at a whopping 382,500 souls. Too bad the run is over and it's time for the credits. Overall, I had a blast doing all the Dark Souls games starting at NG+7. I think I might do this with Neo and possibly Code Vein if I can figure out how to mod those games. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. At this time, I would also like to thank my channel supporters. If you too would like to support the channel or have your name in the video, you can click the Patreon link in the description or click the YouTube join button. I also from time to time stream my runs, so you can catch me streaming on YouTube or on Twitch at Aquarius Gaming. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.